In this lesson, we'll cover setting up the user's local copy of the Revit project that will synchronize to the central file. So in previous lessons, we created a central file, which is basically the master file for a Revit project. All users then would have a local copy of that central file in which they would make their modifications to the things they want to modify, and that would then be synchronized to the central file and then out to all the other users who have a local copy. So once we have the central file created, our next task now is to create the user copies of the central file. This can be done on the server by an administrator, or the users can do this themselves. To do that, you have to use the Open tool within Revit. You have to point to the central file. So with nothing open, inside of Revit, click Open. Once you click Open, browse to the directory of where you saved the files for this course and go to Chapter 19. In Chapter 19, you will see a central file called Central File 1901. Now, I can select this and use this as this is the one for this exercise. Or if you want to use the central file you created from the previous lesson, work sharing, you could do that as well too. I'm going to use this one. Now, before we click OK or Open, select the actual central file. On the very bottom of the screen, there's a checkbox that says Create New Local View. Revit recognizes that this central file, even though it's called central file but doesn't have to be, it recognizes it's a central file. So when I click Open now, the Create New Local View will create a new local view of this central file and append the end with the name of the user, such as me, Tim, or however I'm logged in. Technically, I'm logged in this example as the number 1 as a user login, and you'll see that here in a minute. So go ahead and click Open. When you click Open, what Revit is going to do is read the contents of the central file, make a copy of the central file, append the name of the user to the end of the word central file, in this case _1 or underscore your name, and then save it to the default location of where Revit saves your default documents. Now you may say, well, where is that? Well, to see that, click the large R in the upper left, then go down to Options. On the Options window, click File Location. In the default path for user files, on my computer, it's read C users 1, as that's my login, is 1 instead of my name, and then Documents. So basically, my documents. So that's where Revit actually created your local copy of this file in that directory. Go ahead and cancel the Options window. So basically, this is the local copy, and I could basically start to take next ownership of work sets and work on my project. However, let's just look at the synchronizing tools one more time. Click the Collaborate tab. On the Collaborate tab, you have your work sets, which we'll cover in another lesson. But here we have Synchronize. And on the Synchronize dropdown, you have two options. Synchronize now basically means you're just going to synchronize to the central file anything you've modified, and then you'll relinquish control of any work set that you've been working on, meaning other people can then take control of that work set. Synchronize and modify settings gives you additional options. So for example, if I were to click Synchronize and modify settings, here it's telling me where the central file is located, so I can see it. I also have the ability to do other things in order to, in this case, relinquish work sets or not after I've synchronized. You can also add in comments, which basically is history of what you've done and what you're synchronizing. And all this will be timestamped with the central file. Just click Cancel. Now again, to show you where this file was saved and how it was named, in my computer, it was saved within the user's username and Documents folder, basically my documents. So if I bring up Windows File Explorer, now I were to click Documents on the left, I can see here is the actual document, Central File 1901_1. Yours would be the Central File 1901 underscore your username, whatever that username may be. Now, if you don't like the word central file in this, you can rename the file to whatever you want. But usually keep the name of it, that way it's easily tracked on whose actual project or user project this is. So as a review, in this lesson, we looked at user setup. We've already created the central file for this Revit project, and the user setup was creating the local copy of the central file that the user would use to synchronize changes back to the central file. We walked through the steps of creating that user file, and we also looked at where Revit saves the file.